There we go. All right, we are live. Let's share. You think I got this down all right. Here we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Okay, so what are we talking about today? We're talking about the magic habits that cause your psychic and your material wealth. And the question that I will pose is a question that was in one of the chapters in my book called "Do You Judge Money or Expect It?" And just an interesting thing to keep in mind as I go through here. So here's what the premise of investment mindset is in the marketplace. So if you think about energy is invisible, right? Everybody agree energy is invisible? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And well, money's no exception, really. Money is a form of energy. Now you have paper that you can exchange, but really what money is, it's a currency. It's a form of currency. And you get that currency from delivering value. So every time that you deliver value, every time service is rendered, there's an exchange in currency and energy to someone. And the stuff that we see in our income and that we build wealth on comes from that currency and that energy. So in your whole career, as you go through your whole career, your career is your method for creating your wealth. And it's all about the value and the service that you render to others. And the higher energy vibration that you get yourself into, the more money you attract, because money does not like to be chased. Just like if anybody went on a date and you have this, if you ever went on a date with somebody that was very needy, needy energy repels, right? Would you agree? Like, did you ever have somebody, I'm sure somewhere along the line, you can relate to what I'm saying, where somebody was like chasing you and you just like, you didn't want to be around. Well, money works the same way. So think of it as like almost the dating thing. It's like you want to become the person to attract that money and become by how you're creating value, just like you would attract people in a relationship, which also contributes to, especially in selling, contributes to your success. But the problem is that there's so many people out in the masses that have money stories and money misconceptions. And if you look at Maslow's motivational model here, it's very interesting. You can see what I mean about this needy energy versus growth energy. So needy energy is really the deficiency needs. You think about like what's missing. So in, psychological needs, physiological needs, food, water, and shelter, right? Safety needs that you have for protection. And then belonging and, love needs. So in the industry, especially after COVID, boy, the surveys come back and they say that people are longing for belonging. They're longing for meaning in their work. They're longing for an autonomy. These are things outside of finances that they really want to have in their career, right? You want to have autonomy to do your work and not be micromanaged or whatever and have somebody looking over your shoulder. So these kind of contribute. And then esteem needs just for your own self-esteem. So do you believe in you? How much faith and confidence do you have in yourself? But then when you get up into growth, when you start attracting more and more abundance in your life, you're really working on your cognitive needs, aesthetic needs, self-actualization, and really getting yourself to transcend, right? You just keep bringing more and more of yourself to the surface. So, but most of the time we have been programmed with inverted programming and scarcity mindset from families or societies. 97 out of 100 people out there, are experiencing some sort of scarcity, not because they're not capable of earning money and what have you, but they just have some beliefs in their programming that are holding them back. And so that's the problem that we will kind of want to unravel today and look at, because it's amazing how scarcity, like based upon your environment or your conditioning, can kind of creep into your thoughts. And if you're not really vigilant on watching out for that, it can pull you down in a heartbeat. So, but if you get what I'm saying today, the payoff is you will never worry about money again, because you'll understand how it works. And if you're not getting the income that you want, whether it's psychic or material income, you're going to know how to root cause and kind of go back to what you need to re-examine in terms of your thoughts and your beliefs. Make sense? Okay, so the first distinction that I want to go through is the distinction between investment and spending. So does anyone here know what the difference between invest and spend is?
Not, I'm here to learn.
Okay, Alex, what about you?
Well, spending is just being a consumer, right? Just going out, consuming things, and then investing is really compounding your current stored money.
Okay. So you're on to something there, Alex. So the main thing that you want to remember about investing and spending is investment is always for a future return. So that compounding and stuff that you were talking about is very true. And everything in nature works like investing, right? If you think just to how the universe operates, right? Everything you see in nature is always, multiplying and compounding, whether it's bulbs, daffodil bulbs or whatever. It's always doing a lot of compound work underneath that you can't see. And then all of a sudden you can see it, right? But that's life. So when you're for life, you're investing for future returns. So you have this mindset of making investments with your returns, right? The income that you have, as opposed to spend. What spend means is it's a one-time trade. Now, it doesn't mean that people won't do spend. Sometimes you might like, spend money on, I don't know, fill in the blank. But, maybe you buy, I know when I was 21 getting first into sales, it's like I went out and I spent money to get a suit that lasted me a longer time. It was a high quality suit, the basic blue and the basic black. That can be an investment versus maybe you see something, and you just do a one-time trade and you're going to use it then, but you don't use it again. So I'm not going to make either one right or wrong. I'm just going to tell you that if you start adopting this invest mindset on everything that you're doing, another example might be you get things on Amazon Prime all the time, right? And sometimes you might do some spontaneous spending. So you might want to consider, are all those things maybe things that you need, or what would I get if I took the same cash and bought Amazon stock and got a return, right? So that's an invest mindset versus a one-time spend trade situation. Make sense?
Yes.
And another thing is that you've got to realize that this marketplace that we're in is paying for value. So when your worth and your stock value in the marketplace as an employee is based upon the value that you bring to an organization. And as you continually work on yourself, your value, your stock value goes up. And if you look at the value equations for companies, you've got to think about return on investment. So this is a two-way street that I'm going to talk about, but just think about when a company invests in an employee, they're looking for a return on investment. When you decide to accept a position with a company, you're looking for a return on your investment. Would you agree?
Yes.
Most people don't think about this in the way I'm going to show you in the next slide, but when your return on investment is good and your employer's return on investment is good, that's when you have a great match, right? And that's when you create profit, which think of as profit. So does the position fit you and fit the company so that both sides are getting a return on investment? And I think a lot of times, people today are jumping and making panic pivots, maybe because a disruption happened in the industry. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have to get a job, or, oh my gosh, I've got bills to pay, or I've got myself at a place where everything that I bring in is going back out, and they're in panic mode. So they do panic pivots sometimes, and then you can get yourself going into different places where it's not really a good fit for you. So the educated, aware person, when you're thinking about a career that's going to go over 5 decades, you want to be thinking about making profit for both you and your employer and finding that right fit when you're looking for a position. Now, what are the value equations for the employer? Well, for the employer, it's all about what kind of results can I get from this employee? What will they generate divided by the total cost for that employee? So let's say all of us were in sales, right? So the return is this person, I'm going to pay a certain salary and I'm going to give them an IC program, but what am I going to get in return for that over time? Because again, an investment, right? When you get hired, that's an investment for an organization and they're looking for future return. So the question is, if you're commissioned to bring in, $3 million, how long and then they're going to pay you some sort of a 6-figure salary, or 5-figure, 6-figure salary, maybe combined salary and IC. How long is it going to take them to get that kind of a return? So that's what they're looking at. The results generated divided by the cost of your salary, or your total cost, your total compensation plan. And then the value equation for you as an employee is the amount of pay you receive divided by the effort it takes to produce the results. So your equation has a lot to do with, are you in a position where you're going to play to your strengths? Because if you're in something that you love, right, and you love what you do and do what you love, you're going to be in a high state of vibration. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And you're going to be excited to go to work, and you're going to have lots of momentum, and you're going to be able to get it's going to be more effortless for you if you love what you do than if you hate what you're doing. It's going to be a drag. You're going to be pulled down by your energy. And we said money is energy, right? So, and money is going to be attracted to where the energy is high. So it's really good for the employee to think about, will this position really play to my strengths so that, and if I don't have to do a lot of effort because it's easy for me, because it's a natural strength that I have, then your pay versus your effort, you're going to have a high rate of return for you. So again, this is just investment thinking, constantly thinking, what's the return on investment? What's the future return when I take this action? That's kind of where the mindset is. Now, there's a distinction between your psychic income and your material income. So do you guys know what the material income is, right? Like the cash, right? Do you understand the psychic part of it?
It's like self-image, psyche.
Yeah, how you feel, right? Are you like, yay, I love my job, I can't wait to get up in the morning, or whatever? That's psychic income, because you're feeling a sense of fulfillment. You feel like what you're doing has meaning. You feel like when you show up, you're contributing, right? So it's that belonging, that contribution. That's when we make sales. the material income is fun, but there's nothing greater than having a client come back to you and say, man, that was one of the best decisions we made. I mean, and that fulfillment that you get out of really servicing someone powerfully and helping them with their ROI, with your solution, is where you pick up that psychic income. And so what I'm trying to say here is that you can have both, and you want to be looking for something so that you love what you do and do what you love. You play to your strengths, and you also get a high rate of return on the material side for the effort that you have to put out. Make sense? Now, if you look at debt, which sometimes happens in the workforce, right? Like when someone goes into debt, I'm not just talking about material debt, but just any kind of debt, is when we stagnate. So on Monday, we talked about the whole transition process. And what you want to make sure is, there's champions out there, and there's other people in the workplace. You guys are leaders. So what you want to avoid is going into a stagnation period, which is debt, because that means you're not circulating. Like there's not a lot of circulation. People sometimes get stuck after you get a blow or a disruption in the marketplace. And, like I said yesterday, over a 5-decade career where the average person is going to accept 12 different positions, there will be disruptions that you cause because you want to make a move. And there will be other things that will happen, that you won't even know about, that will affect you somehow. I mean, I'm just telling you, I've been in it. I'm on starting my 6th decade. And there has been a lot of times where I've planned things and things went smooth, but there have been other times where I've been hit by something out of left field, and you have to be able to pivot. And what you don't want to do is make a panic pivot. You want to make a calculated pivot. But if you understand that the stuckness can happen in that neutral zone and how to get yourself unstuck, you will never fall into that debt. And the same thing with the money and the energy is like circulating is always how, if you're circulating and making investments over and over and over again, it's always coming back to you multiplied. So just keep that concept. And the other thing that you have to realize, and what trips most people up, like I said, 97 out of 100 people, is if the thoughts you're thinking are scarcity, you're inverting your energy into deficiency instead of moving your energy up and out into your growth. So what's the cure is you've got to start to become like maniacally like aware of what you're thinking about all the time, because those people that are successful and have intention, like I said yesterday, playing offense, are always thinking about what you want and how you can, instead of what you do not have, the deficiencies, and why you can't. And they're thinking about how they're going to create and leverage the strengths that they have every time a disruption comes. And the reason they become champions, the mindset, the reason why they can recover so doggone fast and seem like they flow through and nothing bothers them, is because they are focused, like laser focused with where their thoughts are going. And they're thinking about what they want. Now, why do people get stuck? Do you know why? There's 2 reasons why people get stuck when these disruptions happen, especially if it's a blow that you weren't expected. You know what those 2 reasons are?
Environment, likely.
What's that?
Environment, likely.
Environment does have a lot to do with your energy. Your attitude is affected constantly by who you hang out with. So that's very true. And the environment affects attitude. So the first reason that people stay stuck is because their attitude towards something stinks. So I don't care what it is. Go down and look at all the results in your life. I don't care whether it's your health, your career, your relationships, your spirituality, or whatever. And if you don't have results that you like in one of those buckets, rate your attitude on a scale of 1 to 10 towards it, because that's what your attitude is, always the energy that you're putting towards something. And if that stuff is repelling or needy or if you're doing the condemn, criticize, or complain at anything with your attitude, you're sunk and you're going to stay stuck. So that's number one. And number two is people don't have a goal. So they get stuck because they're not thinking about what they want. They're so focused on maybe what they don't have and the deficit that they haven't even given one thought to what they really want. And so if you don't have a goal, if you don't always have a goal, that's the first step, in Think and Grow Rich. It's like, desire is a starting point of all achievement. If you don't have a goal on what you want to do, even though you had a disruption, you have to have some sort of a goal. If you listen to your heart, you're getting ideas. Maybe you're dismissing them because you're so focused on that, deficiency stuff. But you got to get out of that and really say, okay, if I can have anything I want, and the world's an open book, what do I want? And then you have to get obsessed with it. And when I say a goal, I'm not saying something that is just something you've done before or something you think you could do. You really have to think about what is it that I would really love, but I haven't got the foggiest idea, that's going to take you into some discomfort as opposed to out in the comfort zone. Because the only way we grow is when we get and walk into uncertainty, and we have to experience discomfort. And that's what happens in imposter syndrome. You take a new job, and sometimes you feel like you're a little bit of an imposter, but you have to turn that thought around and you have to say, look, this just means I'm growing. And I've figured this out before. Think about how many jobs you've had before and how you figured stuff out. You figured it out. You figured out how to ride a bike. You figured out how, as a baby, how to walk across the floor when you saw all these adults walking around, and you just said, I don't care. And you fell down, banged your head, did whatever. You were going to get across that room come hell or high water. And that's the same thing you have to do. You have to have that kind of a mindset when disruption hits, so that you can positive pivot as opposed to panic pivot. And that requires you have to be, I like the symbol, keep calm and pull the weeds, because scarcity to me is just like weeds in a garden. Thoughts will come up and they'll try to hide and look like, they're in there. And you've got to be able to spot those dang on weeds and get those bad thoughts out of your head, because it's affecting your attitude. And then get right back laser. You are a goal seeking. You have a subconscious mind, and your mind is so powerful. It's always seeking a goal. You got to give it a name. And if you're not giving it a name, then you're letting the outside control you, like some boat flying on the water with no freaking sail up in the air. And you're just going to get whatever comes to you. That's no way to live, because a lot of times you're going to end up, up against the rocks, going nowhere. So 2 things to get out of that bubble is you got to have a goal, and you got to check that attitude and watch for that scarcity mindset, because it's actually, when I say mental disease, it's because you're thinking inverted. You're inverting your energy to deficits as opposed to growth, turning it up and out and letting it go and flow to growth. And life works that way. There's a Fibonacci sequence in math. We're all in the science arena. And the Fibonacci sequence is how the compounding thing works. And, it just constantly expands. So if you have an investment mindset, you're always planning for the future, and you're compounding things that what you're doing. And when you're in circulation, you're not in debt. If you're spreading it around, if you're spreading your gifts, if you're taking the good you have, which is your talents, and then you're giving those to everyone, even if you've got people in an organization. And, sometimes that competitive mindset will come in, and you'll say, well, I don't want to tell Sally or Joe, because then I'm not going to look like the king, and you get your ego stuck in the wrong place. That's not the attitude you want to have. You just want to give it every good thing that you've been blessed with. You want to give it to everybody you meet, and don't hold back on anybody. And when you start doing that, you're in abundance land, because everything you give out, it's coming back to you multiplied. So I'm going to give you 7 primary timeless principles on money to consider. And these are the new ideas. Some of them you might know, some of them might be new. Just at least evaluate them. You don't have to accept anything I say. You decide if you want to accept them, but I'm going to give you 7 timeless principles of money that I had to really learn and get the scarcity mindset cleared out of my money stories. And I'm sharing them with you, but these are timeless principles that do work. So the first one is that you've always got to be paying yourself first. I don't care if it's in the beginning, if you don't have, if the funds, based upon your habits have been such that you can only put 2 pennies for every dollar, or 1 penny for a dollar. Start somewhere, but you should always be putting something as soon as the income comes in into your investment, something for your savings and investment before you spend anything else. That's just basic finance, all the finance books, all the people in the finance industry, that whole thing. I mean, that's just a timeless principle. And if you do it and you make a habit of it, it will benefit you, throughout your career. The second principle, this one's big, especially for sales, when you're in sales, because your material money or your sale that gets you a commission is always earned. It's not made. You don't make sales or you don't make money. You earn it. So put that down and put a little star and start saying to yourself, earn, 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 because once you learn this, your whole mindset will shift using that word. It's really important that money is not made, it's earned, and sales are not made, they're earned. And how are they earned? Earnings always are a result of service rendered, not the other way around. So you always have to put wood on the fire first to get a return. Basic 101. But it's service rendered is why the exchange of the material, the currency. It's because you render service. Now, principle number 3 is the amount you earn is determined by 2 things. So the first one is the quality of the service, and the second is the quantity. And there's 2 types of salespeople out there. There's the amateurs and the pros. And the pros know this, and they not only work on the quantity, but their quality is always going up. Their stock value is always going up. And that means they're going to take the time to develop the habits to get their sales presentation nailed, to understand how they're going to think through objections. All the objections that you get are either there's 2 bases for those objections in any sales process if you're getting them. One is trust and the other one is value, because we're talking investment today. And if you're getting objections, you have not demonstrated enough value to that client. So maybe you haven't explained the ROI for them. Maybe you haven't gathered enough of the right people, whatever it is, but then that means as a pro, you got to go back and say, okay, I'm getting the time and money lines. Why am I getting that? How can I adjust my sales presentation to render more value and demonstrate more value? And, how can I make sure if there's a trust issue, it sure as heck better not be you, and people trust you when you show up based upon the attitude you bring to the party and the amount of belief you have in your product. Which is another reason why I will tell you over and over again, you better love what you do and do what you love, because people will pick up on your double binding messages. If you don't have conviction about what you're selling, the beliefs, you can say it all day, but if you ain't walking the talk and they don't feel that congruency of energy, they will never make a composite with you. So you've got two things to work on. If you're not, it's the quantity and the quality that's important of the service rendered, but always be thinking service. It's like planting seeds. If you see any of my posts on LinkedIn, I always say, be in the spirit of selling, serve, invest and transform. And that's just planting. That's just gardening, laws of the universe kind of stuff. You're always giving service. You got to make an investment. That means we've got to nurture the people in the funnels, right? You got to nurture them along. You got to help, like a gardener's making sure the plants are getting watered, the weeds are out. You got to nurture them in the process. And then you harvest your return. That's the transformation. When they experience a transformation, that's when you get your psychic income and your material income, because they've had a transformation and you've rendered that service to help get them there as a leader. Now, the other thing that backs this up is there's a law of compensation that says the amount of money you earn is an exact ratio for, number one, the need for what you do. So when you're choosing a career and you're choosing what you're going to sell, you got to ask yourself, how big is the need? If there's a lot of competition, it's usually a really good sign that the market has a need for it, right? If there's very little competition, you better check that one out, because you want to make sure that you're selling something that people really need. They're going to buy in the marketplace. So when you're looking at new technology, even, somebody might have a cool gadget to sell on some company, but if the market doesn't have a need for it, you're going to struggle, right? Would you guys agree? So that's number one. The second one is your ability to do it. So how good are you at your craft of selling? If you had to be, compared against all the pros out there, where do you fit? And if you're not where you want to be, what is it that you need to work on? And the third thing is the difficulty in replacing you. When organizations are going through restructures or whatever, I'll tell you what they've done, because I've been there enough times in a management position. They force rank the reps, force rank them, all the qualities. How good are they? What are their results? How good are they at creating harmony in the company? Are they the person that's always at the water cooler talking about somebody else? Or are they the person that's kind of bringing everyone together for harmony so that you can, have a good, fit in the company? They force rank you. So you want to be always giving more than what you're being paid for. Why? Because then, they're not going to, if you're performing and giving more than even what you're paid for, you're going to get a raise, and you sure as heck aren't going to be the ones that's going to get cut at the bottom, right? So it's kind of like, when you adopt that, is like, okay, this is the standard that I'm going to show up as. If I'm thinking investment mindset and I'm coming to a company, I'm going to increase my stock value. How am I going to do that? Because I'm going to render more service than what I'm getting paid for. And I'm going to take my game always up and up and up and up. And you can always get better, right? I mean, nobody would argue with that, right? You could always be better. You could always take it. You can always improve something. Review your sales calls. What else could I have said? How could I have said that smoother? How could I have gotten more information out of one call instead of having to go back 2 or 3 times and lose the sale because somebody else came in and they were such a pro, they got them all the way to yes. And it was going to take me 3 times because I didn't know what I was doing, right? So it's just the law of compensation. But if you understand that, then you start saying, okay, I'm definitely going down this law of an investment mindset thought process because I'm going to benefit from it. Any questions? I've just got 7, and then we're going to wrap it up. We good? All right. The fourth principle, that this is the one that sometimes is a belief system one that you can get, from your teachers at school or whatever. But I want to get you super duper clear on that. you are divine. You were made with a purpose. God created every single one of us for a specific purpose. You're perfect the way you are, and you are designed with a purpose, with certain strengths. And so work is made for you to share your strengths and give those strengths to the world, to be productive, right? That's why you're here. Every planet, every bug, plant, like if we're just talking about Earth, trees, everything has a purpose. You know, different animals eat other animals and clean things, do the environment. You have a purpose too. And when you go to work, you were not made to work like the slaves in Egypt when they're cracking whips on them. That's not why you were made. You know, work itself and a career is made for you to gain your satisfaction, for you to share your gifts, grow and expand your gifts. And in doing so, in feeling that satisfaction from giving somebody a gift. Think of anything you've ever done for someone, the satisfaction, and when you're the most fulfilled. What is it that you're doing and what do you love to do? And that's something that you should channel as your strengths and leverage in the marketplace, because you have unique strengths. Now, if you accept this, that work was made for you, you want to choose a career where you're going to get satisfaction. You may choose that you're going to ask questions on an interview about what kind of respect different, people are going to have, because you value respect. And you want to be in a good, to your point earlier, Alex, you want to be in a good environment, right? So is this place that I'm going to allow me to leverage my strengths and grow so that I can get satisfaction, my psychic income on a regular basis during the day? That's really important, because it's going to affect your energy field. And your energy field is going to affect the amount of earnings that you're going to have. Okay. Number 5, if you want to put this in your notes, there's only 3 strategies for earning income. So the first one, everyone at school, they teach you to do this. They say, go work a 40-hour work week, trading time for money. So that strategy is limited because we only have a fixed amount of time. Would you agree? So, even in like a coaching business, if you're just do one-on-one coaching with people, you only have maybe 8 hours in the day or 9 or whatever you want to work, and you max out after that. So that's trading time for money. It's just you do work for hourly work, and that's it. The second strategy is trading money for money. So many companies offer things like 401k programs and stuff for you to save your money. So you're giving money to investors and they're investing it for you, or you're self-investing it, but you're putting it into like stock markets or places where they can use your money for investment, right, to get a return. And then the third strategy that you can employ as you go through this career that's going to have all these transitions are there multiple streams of income that you could have? So maybe you have a side hustle of something that you're doing. Maybe you write a book. Maybe you get into some sort of affiliate program for marketing or sharing, back and forth, whatever it is that you can get some additional strategies. Now, all the millionaires have always, way back to Babylonian times, always worked with multiple streams of income. And that really is another reason why you should want to build your network as you're building your career, because you got to kind of see where are these opportunities maybe where I can engage that it would make sense. Early on in your career, maybe it doesn't make sense, but it certainly makes sense to consider, maybe because in the beginning of your career, you're just trying to hone in those skills. Like I talked about on day 1, it's like when you're in your 20s, you're really focused on mentorship, and gaining that knowledge so that you can take the experience, because you get all this book knowledge in college, but that doesn't mean anything in the marketplace because you haven't applied anything. You don't really know something, truly know it by doing it and having an experience. So, but as you continue, maybe you start in your 40s, you want to maybe look at other things that you could do to leverage multiple streams of income. But there's only, those are 3 strategies that you can use for earning. And whichever one you pick determines the quantity and the quality of the wealth that you're going to generate over a career. And there's only 3 ways to manage the money. Now, this one is something to really, really think about. It kind of ties in to what I talked about in principle number 1, which is always to pay yourself first. But people, I don't care whether you make $40,000 a year or you make $5 billion a year, you're only going to have 3 ways to manage your money. One is you're going to spend exactly what you earn. 2 is you're going to spend more than you earn. And the 3rd one is you're going to pay yourself first and spend less than you earn. And what you've got to ask yourself the question, and I don't need to know the answer, but you need to know it, is what habit is the one that you adopt and use most often? Because whatever that habit is will affect you long term. And I'll tell you the thing about a habit that, I got a lot of this knowledge way late in my career. God, I wish somebody would have told me this when I was 21 years old. It's why I wrote my book. It's the whole thing, this whole investment policy. I can tell you, it's a hell of a lot easier to start in your 20s and pick a good habit that's going to serve you well. But it's never too late, even if you're in your 60s or 70s, to start picking a different habit that's going to serve you better moving forward, because today's the first day of your life. But there's only 3 ways to manage money. And you can always self-correct. But when you pick a habit out of one of those habits that is going to give you some future return, then when a disruption or a transition that you did not expect happens, you have something to get you through that time. And many businesses during COVID, look how many businesses went out of business. What the heck do you think they were doing? And when you're choosing a job, you got to think about asking some serious questions about their policies on what they're doing to manage the money. Because there are companies that are in it for the long game, an investment strategy like an Apple or something like that, right? They're going to be in business, they had a vision for a future and they want to be in business for the long term. And there's going to be companies that are going to want to, do their best for a short-term gain, and they're not playing the long game. And it's okay if you want to choose to do that, but you want to know that going in so that you're negotiating some things for if they spent all the money or whatever, and something goes awry, that you've got some sort of exit strategy pre-planned. Because sometimes those companies offer you a lot in return on investment with stock and things like that, but you've got to really be alert to see and aware during those times that you're working for some of those organizations, what's going on, and have your spidey senses up. Because after COVID, a lot of people were totally out of business because they had not done maybe any future planning for the cycles of business, right? Every recession follows a progression, and then it goes back into recession again. Business cycles are like 4 seasons. There's always 4 seasons going on. That you have to become, a sales champion that can ride the seasons, all 4 seasons. And that requires this investment mindset thinking. Last one, probably one of the very most important one, is all of your beliefs about money or controlling your income. So the key you want to do, and we're going to talk about how to do this tomorrow, is you better doggone well evaluate them. Because a belief is nothing more than an idea that you accepted to be true. Beliefs are not you, they're just ideas that you accepted to be true. And you probably got a lot from handed down over the years in your generations. They're so deeply ingrained, you don't even know them until you start really looking at them. but the minute that you do and you put in the work that I'll talk about later this week, you will be able to rise and adopt new beliefs. But if you feel like you hit a plateau and you kind of are stuck there and you can't get beyond it, I guarantee it's coming back to some belief that you have that you're just not maybe even aware of. And the more you become aware of your unconscious behavior and your beliefs and start saying, just like I told you at the beginning of this workshop today, is I'm going to give you some ideas. I don't want you to accept them. I want you to evaluate them. Start evaluating the old ones you have and decide whether they're serving you. If they do not empower you and they do not support you towards your wildly amazing future, you want to consider whether you want to keep them or not, and have the courage to let those go, because they are not truth. Any of those beliefs, if they do not empower you and they do not support you, they are absolutely not capital T truth. It's just some idea you accepted because somebody told you so, maybe when you're 12 or 6, or who knows where they came from. So, but your beliefs will control your income, just like your self-image. So what can you do? On this give, share your gifts. You may say, okay, but I don't have anything to give. We all have stuff to give. And some of the basic things that you can give, especially when you're in a sales career and to your employer, is give people your attention, give your appreciation. It's like an ace. You know how they put an ace player out on the pitching field? You need to bring your ace to the game. So, attention, appreciation, consistency. Do you show up consistently? Can customers rely on you? Do you do what you say what you do? Empathy. Do you have empathy towards other people? Do you have empathy with the people you work with in the organization? And then your excellence is really your standards. Are you continually raising your standards and bringing your excellence forward? And if you're doing all those things, those are huge gifts that you can give. And that doesn't even have anything to do with material money. But when you start giving what you have and putting those into circulation, the law of circulation says it's going to come back to you. So if you don't have the money part right now to give, you give everything else that you've got. There's a lot there to give. And the more that you distribute your gifts, and this is getting back to the law of use, the parable of talents, is all about stewardship. So when we get in a state of transition or disruption, what that signal is, instead of thinking, oh gosh, like Chicken Little, the sky's falling, and putting your head under the cloud, it's not falling. It's just time for you to create and distribute your gifts in a different way. It's the reset process. And St. Peter said, it's kind of hard to read this because of that saying, but it said, I'm just going to read it for you because it may be hard to, I may be squinting at it. As each one has received a gift, use it to serve another as good stewards of God's gift to you with grace. So, I was reading this I had my other book, Robert Collier's book, and he said it well. He said, when you give freely and never use it against your brother, like, you know what I mean? You're just giving and giving it out and giving it out and giving it out. That's the way that what they made when they said do unto others as you would do unto yourself, that parable, the thing that Jesus said. That's really what it's about. When you go in the wrong direction, if you look back at any kind of mistake where maybe you failed or you went in the wrong direction, it was probably because you had something and maybe you were hoarding it to yourself or not sharing it with some, but maybe not sharing with others. And so if you can kind of get into this mantra of how can I share what the good I have with as many people as I can share it with, you're going to be in abundance energy. You're not going to be in scarcity energy. And that's the best way to get yourself out of a funk. If you ever feel bad, is just start doing something for somebody else and stop thinking about yourself, and you'll like get out of it immediately. Because again, that goes back to that psychic income, because you feel worthy. Like you know, when you do some good for someone else, you see the more good in you, that's just a psychological thing to know. So the real message in today really was that you can have your psychic income and your material income and become financially independent. It's never too late. You know, people do it at 60, people have done it at 70. So you want to work for satisfaction, pay yourself first. You know, the rule of thumb is 10%, but start, if you can't do 10, start with 1. Leverage your expertise and your strengths. And if you utilize multiple income earning strategies, you know, you will experience a lot of abundance because you're circulating your gifts and helping others. So after, you know, the question to end the day here is really think about what principles of those 7 that I went through, maybe do you want to consider adopting? And are there any habits, you know, when I said there's 3 ways to manage money, and even habits of the way or ways of thinking about employment that you might want to use for your improvement, you know, from today, then you want to take that and you kind of want to rewrite your money story. So the today's assignment, and I say this in all my seminars, it's always those of you who actually take action and do the work will work. Like you'll get something out of it. If you just gather the information and say that's interesting and walk away and don't take anything and try it out for yourself like a scientist and test it, you're never going to really know it. So I'm going to be sending an email out from my book. Was the 2nd chapter was Money Misconceptions. So I'm going to give you that to read. And tonight's assignment really is just to take some time, go sit outside or do, you know, maybe and just take your notepad and think about your money story and the 7 principles that I gave you, and use those to rewrite your money story. Maybe, you know, or have you been thinking that money maybe doesn't grow on trees, or you have to work hard for money, or all these different things? And how can you take what I told you about getting psychic income and material income and really make some decisions about your career that kind of take you forward in a positive direction, the way you want to show up, whether it's, you know, doing more than what you're paid for, something simple as that. If you're in a job, if you're not in a job and you're looking for a job, you might think about the things on how you're going to align, or questions that you're going to ask on the interview. And we'll talk more about that again on Thursday. Get deeper into the environment thing and how to align and ask the questions. But hopefully this gave you some insights that were beneficial.
Did.
Good.
Definitely the thoughts. I mean, you have to be mindful of your thoughts, right?
Absolutely, Alex. Yeah. Yeah. The thoughts, the whole game, you know, is controlling your emotions with your thoughts, as opposed to having the experiences from the outside control you.
Yeah, definitely.
And it takes a lot of practice, and it takes some work.
Yeah, the discipline behind that, it's a challenge. I mean, sometimes you find some consistency, but after like a month, you find yourself back in that cycle. So the whole discipline with the thoughts, being mindful of your thoughts is definitely, it's a challenge.
Yes.
It's a practice.
Yes. That's why getting in a good environment on a regular basis and mentorship often provides so many benefits, because who you hang out with, the 5 people you hang out with the most, you're absorbing their energy, whether you know it or not. And is it the energy that's going to grow you, or do you need to make some decisions to shift that environment? So we could talk more about that tomorrow. All right.
All right.
So look for your email for your work, and do the work, and then the work works. All right. Stacy,
Will
you
do.
know that. You did it on the last workshop. You did some work, didn't it work?
It did. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did have a question though.
What's
when
that?
you're doing some of these principles and say you're in the groove and in the zone, why is it that we fall out of them sometimes?
Distraction, something happens and it takes your attention maybe off the track. And that's where that discipline has to come in, where you have to be, monochronic and the attitude, it's usually the attitude that I talked about, the two things that get you stuck. It's your attitude towards something that's not in a positive vein, and the lack of a new goal. So maybe you had a goal, but then you've achieved it and you're kind of sitting around and you really haven't thought about the next big move, Some people like learn how to make $1 million and then they're like stuck again. And it's like, well, why are you stuck? You look pretty good. Well, they don't have a new big idea to create. You always have to be creating. Always have to be growing, because otherwise you're not experiencing life. You're experiencing death. You're either going to go in the life direction or you go in the death direction. There is no neutral in life. Nothing's going to stay neutral. So get over it. We're spinning around on a planet. Everything's moving, vibrating. It doesn't stay the same. It never will. So just get that out. I mean, that's when I hear people say, I'm just going to coast. It's like, you ain't coasting, brother, sister. I mean, something's going to happen to you to get you back to doing what you're supposed to do, which is you were born in the image of your creator to create, to share with your gifts and use them. And the more you use them, when you get up to the pearly gates, I don't know about you, but I want to get up there and say, hey, what did you think about? I don't want to be up there saying, oh gosh, I wish I should have did it, whatever, that stuff, right? You got to use them and let it rip. So get excited. The reason you get stuck, Stace, two reasons. It's that attitude, because something happened, or you don't have a goal that's going to grow you and you need a new one.
You're right. I mean, it's crystal clear. It really is.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Have a good day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.